Publicity weekend, and we're fortunate enough to have Dave Burns down in the heat, down in the garage area.
Let me tell you, Steve, yes, it is hot in Darlington, South Carolina, but that is nothing new for those who have raced down here. And you mentioned the three-car earlier, the 4 team members that were on hand representing the 1995 team, Andy Petrie, Chocolate Myers, Danny Lawrenson, Jim, the truck driver. They were all here for the unveiling, and it's a very, very good look. One thing I wanted to point out, because I just talked to Austin, who's hopped in the race car. In the Xfinity Series practice, not a lot of cars went out when practice began. That's because of a tire conservation mode that they were in. But Austin told me, no, we have to go. We have to go because they are in a 30-minute hold at the end of this practice, so they only get about half of it because of some inspection issues at the last race. So Austin will be going right out in this beautiful 3-car.
Well, Junior, you mentioned how cool this paint scheme is. Well, I think the unveil was pretty cool as well. This was one that wasn't done ahead of time. We see Andy Petrie right there in the hat. This was this morning here at Darlington, the first time they unveiled the scheme they were going to run.
Chocolate Myers there on the right, next to Austin. A lot of the members of this race team currently in past. There's the race car itself that Dad drove. And I like the efforts to keep it as secret as possible, to do the unveil as late as possible here at the racetrack. I mean, but you know, you see a lot of great unveils throughout the months leading up to this race. That's what hypes this event and makes it so much fun.
When we're going to talk a lot about paint schemes. And when you look at drivers, Austin Dillon, I mean, he absolutely started the season with fireworks, winning the biggest race of the year, Daytona 500. But since then, you know, it seemed to be a little bit of a lull. But in Michigan, I thought the RCR equipment looked a little better, Jeff. They need some momentum. Heading into the playoffs, they're guaranteed in with that win, but they need something to try to give them a shot in the arm to prove that they're more than just a playoff team. They could truly be a competitor to try to move forward.
Well, you hear every team, every driver say that they don't want to just be in the playoffs. They want to be able to contend when they get in the playoffs. And if this team's going to do that, they are going to indeed have to step it up. They just have not had consistent speed. And you know, this is a tough racetrack to go find that, though. I mean, you know, I of all places that you come to, Junior, I'm not sure that this is a place where you're saying, okay, we got to all of a sudden go faster. You want to attack this racetrack, and the people that do attack this racetrack, they're rewarded because there's speed by attacking this racetrack, but there's also danger in getting your car torn up. So for this team in particular and all the teams that are struggling, it's going to be interesting to see how they manage this race, trying to be one of those contenders, trying to put themselves in position to where they think they can compete when this championship battle starts.
Dillon finished 4th here last year, and I was down in the garage talking to RCR and some of the employees in that race team. They feel like they're bringing their best stuff to the racetrack. They think over the next 2 weeks they're really going to be able to show even more improvement than they've had over the last several weeks to continue to push toward those playoffs.
So we heard Dave report about strategies we're going to see from these teams in the Xfinity Series. There weren't a lot of cars on the track early. Austin Dillon has that 30-minute penalty. We expect to see him right away. But how about cars here like the 21 right here of Paul Menard? As a crew chief, we only have 3 sets of tires for 2 hours of practice. This place chews up tires. It's like a cheese grater on a block of cheese. Every lap, it takes chunks of tire away. So I want to wait, Jeff. I want to wait 30 or 40 minutes, wait well into practice before I hit the racetrack. But as a driver,
I want to go. I mean, you know, the way that I'm going to figure out what I need to do better is to be on that racetrack. We talk a lot about simulators and all those kind of things that drivers use prior to coming to a racetrack. But this racetrack, maybe like a lot like Bristol last weekend, is that it's hard to replicate with any kind of software. With no matter how much money you spend, it's hard to replicate this racetrack. And on top of that, Junior, turn 2 has always been tough. But as we look at this shot, you can see at the top of the screen all those patches right there. Everybody tells me that those things have gotten rougher. They're more bumpy. It's harder to get the car to stick on the racetrack, and that makes it just that much more difficult.
Yeah, you see the racetrack. Look at the color of this racetrack. This place has changed so much over the years. Just recently was repaved. Look at the difference. This is the repave up here in 2008, and 10 years later, almost 10 years later, look at the difference in the color. We talk about racetracks aging. That's what we mean. The surface of the racetrack is aged. It's gotten slicker. These guys have worn this racetrack out. This old, you know, this down in the sand hills in South Carolina. It's going to really be tough on it during the summer months. It's so hot today. You can see the big difference in the changing of the racetrack, and this is what every racetrack hopes to achieve as far as the surface of the racetrack. This is what every racetrack is trying to accomplish, is to get to this point.
Why? What does the surface do? I mean, I know as a crew chief, it gives me opportunity for a car that can be good on new tires, old tires, but as a race car driver, what do you prefer about this surface?
Well, on a repave, they build such a durable tire that there's not any fall off, and you really don't run. You run about the same lap time from start to finish of a run. So that makes it very hard to pass guys. That makes it very hard to run side by side or have any kind of comers or goers in the race. Guys' cars are going to handle pretty much the same every lap. At a racetrack like this, it's so slick, so wore out, there could be a second, 2 seconds, even 3 seconds of fall off over a period of time. In Atlanta, we have 2 seconds of fall off. So that means that guys' cars are slowing down dramatically over just a few laps. From lap 1 to lap 5 can be 7/10, almost a whole second. So guys' cars are going to change the way they drive as they go throughout the run. The handling in the car is going to change. Some guys are going to run better at the start of the run. Some guys are going to run better at the end of the run.
So you talk about tough racetracks. I can't think of a tougher driver.
Yes.
Than Cale Yarborough.
Yes.
And this is a throwback to that car back in '68 that happens to win the Southern 500.
Yeah, Cale was awesome. That's the guy I pulled for when I was a kid, man. He was the man. He could win everywhere. And in 1965, led 169 laps. And beat perhaps the best ever at this racetrack, David Pearson.
Look at that. I mean, that is a wore-out race car driver. And you're not going to be shocked now when you see these highlights. Something's going to look different. And that's because this track was flipped. Right here, you see the 21, which is now on the front straightaway. We call it the front straightaway, going down to turns 1 and 2. But for years, the racetrack was the opposite. The front stretch was over there on the back. It was a completely different look, and the egg-shaped racetrack was raced a different way.
And I have to confess, Junior, that even the last race I drove here, I called turn 3, turn 1, probably 5 times during that weekend.
This race car right here, this is a really nice throwback. When you think about throwback, some guys don't always go with the right colors. Some guys might have to do some sponsor. This is an exact replica.
I love it.
As good as it gets.
I was a big fan of this car, and this year, Jeff, you might want to look away. This race was a little tough on you, but
this is one of those races where, oh, if I only had to do it over again.
I was lucky enough to be on this 24 car. I was the tire guy in the battle between you, Jeff, and Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon was going after the Winston Million at the time, $1 million bonus for winning 3 of the 4 marquee. Look at that. Dale Jarrett, he was coming. He was like, I hope y'all wreck each other.
I got next to him. We were so much faster. We had a bad pit stop. We'd run him down. I got by Jarrett. I caught Jeff. We got into turn 1, and I'm like, I don't want contact because I'm just going to come off turn 2 and pass you. Like, this deal's done. I didn't factor in, Junior, all the marbles. You talked about that old racetrack and how it would shed tires and even rocks were on the apron. I picked up all those stuff. I drove into turn 1, and I'm done. Like, the car wouldn't turn. It wouldn't make her a grip, and I'm like, I did this wrong.
That's the thing, fans, and I would have never known. I've watched that replay 100 times, and I would have not known because you can't visually see how dirty the racetrack is out of the groove. But you talk about it. I mean, where these guys aren't running on the apron and maybe right up against the fence, a lot of debris, and they'll be trying to stay out of that debris all weekend long.
Just under 45 minutes left here in first practice from Darlington, South Carolina.
Now, the 90s saw the birth of grunge rock. Plaid was popular way before Rutledge started wearing it. The kids lined up to get a Game Boy, while a show about nothing turned out to be something indeed. The box office turned out Titanic hits like Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump, and Jurassic Park. But I have seen Shawshank Redemption about 30 times. And in sports, the Chicago Bulls scored 6 NBA titles. And Jeff Gordon tamed Darlington over again.
Okay, truth. Who had a Game Boy?
I did.
I knew you did. Burton, Game Boy?
I was a little older
I
than
had
you,
a Game Boy. You still could have had a Game Boy. But
my children.
Jamie McMurray's jumping over the pit wall here. He's actually walking into pit lane. He's had a little trouble. A lot of solid fluid out of the back of his car.
Oof.
Let's take a look.
Major engine expiration is what that looks like.
Gosh, you don't see that very often anymore, do you? I mean, how many times do you see in practice an engine blow up?
He ran 1 lap. It could have been just a line.
Yeah, that's right.
Could have came loose.
Could have been.
He's smart to stop the car right here and let them go ahead, because it could be something they could fix. The engine might be okay.
You see his paint scheme. It was inspired by Hall of Famer Bill Elliott's 1998 McDonald's 50th anniversary car.
That's a B-side throwback.
Check it out. Oh, Bill's been in the news a lot lately. Ran that race last weekend. Said he hit everything but the lottery. I've been there.
There was the one quote in Scan All I heard where Chase was telling him, you had to get down to that corner a little deeper. Well, you come drive this. That's what Bill told him.
Some tells me that's been the other way once or twice.
Oh, listen, you know he's having a good time, though, to get back in the car. I'm still trying to think, is he the first active Hall of Famer to drive? He might be. I heard the radio on this, too. Car's not that bad, but I cannot see over the hood. I'm going to need some help.
What I liked about it was his attitude going into it. He's like, hey, I'm going to have a good time. I have absolutely no, expectations. He didn't go there planning on winning the race. He went there to just experience it. And, he said he'd never driven a modern race car. And he wanted to know what they drove like. And it was interesting how he said how different they are from what he was accustomed to driving. He was shocked how differently they drove.
Well, we're going to get this oil cleaned up and hopefully get back to practice.
NASCAR and NBCSN is brought to you by Monster Energy. Unleash the beast. Looks like Jamie McMurray unleashed the oil. Good Lord, look at all that.
Holy smokes.
Dave, what you got down there, bud?
They did unleash a lot of speedy dry down there now, didn't they? Jamie, what did you feel or hear in the one car?
Yeah, I mean, not really any indication on our McDonald's Chevy. It's, once it started vibrating, it was really violent. And I didn't even realize the motor was blowing up. I thought maybe something else. I didn't see smoke initially when it started vibrating. But then, obviously, later on, as the oil started pouring out, I caught on to what happened. But really odd. I hadn't even made a lap yet. So for that to happen, I don't know what happened. Just unfortunate.
Sorry to see your car parked so early. Cleanup continues, guys.
Well, they always want to know how much oil is in a Cup car.
That was all of it.
That was all of it. About 4 gallons. And if you want to know what 4 gallons looks like dumped in a puddle, I'm thinking we just learned right here on the front stretch.
So I always try to put myself in the mind of the driver. And we talked about limited tires. In one place that you want as much track time as you can get, but because you have limited tires, there's only so much you can get. This isn't that bad of a place if you're going to have something go wrong. Now they can get that motor changed and be ready for the second practice, and they'll have, that set of tires plus 2 more for one practice, and you can get a lot done.
The only negative is that when they roll off Sunday afternoon, he's going to be the last car out there because the engine changed. But it's 500 miles. It's over a 4-hour race. I think as long as you just remain patient at a patient testing racetrack, he'll be just fine. This cleanup is testing my patience a little.
It's Myrtle Beach brought to you. Look at this. This looks like Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, it does. Like you're on the Grand Strand.
There's a lot of sand.
We hear NASCAR is adding 5 minutes of practice because of this delay. And this is hurting. You talk about those cars that have penalties, time penalties, Jeff. Well, the penalties at the end of practice. So this right here is hurting their practice time. We talk about the history of Darlington, NASCAR's historic first super speedway. Look, first race back in 1950. Think about that, the first ever super speedway race. The first race over 200 miles. This is a heck of a racetrack to do it on. Then back in 52, 6 hours and 42 minutes. That's a lot of cars right there. I'm not sure what that would have felt like. And then we've seen the Ricky Craven finish just inches apart. How about Ned Jarrett? 14 laps. That's my kind of margin of victory. And then, Dale Jr., what would you feel like if you rolled off like 81st or 82nd in an 82-car field?
I'd be taking it easy that first lap.
Easing into the first corner.
What kind of seat you think they had?
Oh, yeah. Not.
The stock.
Yes.
Stock.
And there's so many. You talk about a racetrack. There are so many from eras, whether it's the finish, the wrecks.
In that race that had 82 cars, someone drove a car that was a utility vehicle for the track. So it was a runner, for some staff.
Yep.
So, they literally in the 51 for that race, those were cars that you would buy at the store, and you could drive it right over here and race it. It's crazy how much the sport's changed.
Now, isn't that the one? I heard the story, maybe you told me about the guy that won it had the...
The guy that won it had truck tires.
That's right, because everybody was blowing tires, so he had truck tires on.
He went and bought some truck tires and ran on one set. And I think Red Byron finished second, had 24 flats.
Dave.
Down here in the garage area, teams working on their cars after their first runs. One of them is the 32 of Matt DiBenedetto, who is running a very familiar paint scheme to one of the people up in the booth. Jeff Burton. I understand, Jeff, you were actually consulted when this was happening, right?
Yeah, Matt called me and talked to me about it and asked me if I thought it was cool, and I'm like, heck yeah, man, it's awesome that you would do that. And it was a
the old 99
really cool
X-Side car,
yeah,
right?
man, it was a cool honor for them to do that. And that paint scheme, what's funny about that paint scheme, Junior, is I didn't like that paint scheme.
You did.
But all the fans loved it, Dave. It was
Got
like
your autograph
the fans
on it. Did
liked
you do
it, and
that
I
this
didn't
morning?
like it. No,
Well,
so-
signed it this morning.
I can't write that.
So here's my story. Everybody liked it, right, as far as fans go, including one young Matt DiBenedetto who had just started watching NASCAR. His parents didn't watch NASCAR. He loved the sport. And when he watched the sport, guess which car popped out at him? The 99 car. It was the first one he saw. It was the first one he fell in love with. And then he started following Jeff Burton, the driver. And he kind of liked him, too. So he thought, okay, this is what I'm going to follow in the sport. So, Burton, that's why he's a big fan of yours. And that's why this paint scheme, he's actually been bugging him to do it for a couple of years now. That's why it's on this car this weekend.
Well, let me be clear. You're not the only one that didn't love the paint scheme. I wasn't a big fan of it, and I wasn't a big fan of it for this specific reason. When we went to New Hampshire back in 2000, and you decided to lead what, every lap, right? Is that correct? Every single lap.
Yeah, that was a cool day, I thought. It's been some great controversy. Other people don't seem to like that.
Oh.
And actually, a little fact about that race, we didn't sit on the pole. Qualified second. So everybody thinks
Bobby
we sat on a
Labonte,
pole.
right?
Yeah, everybody thinks we sat on a pole in every lap, but actually Bobby Labonte. And if I led every lap, Bobby Labonte ran second every lap.
That's right.
He was on my bumper the entire race.
You know, that sounded to me like a driver politic, and then I really am good at the starts. Because I
It's
went
not qualified.
Be a lot of fun today. Here's promo. One breaking news, race highlights, updated standings, and more delivered to your inbox every week. Subscribe to the official NASCAR newsletter. Visit NASCAR.com/newsletter to sign up today.
So just in my note keeping, that's a promo. I mean, I'm just keeping track. That's not sound on tape. That's a promo right there. I'm just getting my TV terminology correct.
We're knocking the rust off for sure.
All right. Well, so aren't these
I like
guys.
how you announced to everybody you were going to read. That was an added plus.
Oh, man. Well, these guys are going to knock some rust off. We're back to practice. I like this car right here, 18 of Kyle Busch. And I love when they get the original driver involved, right? We got Ernie Irvan back in the day, drove this. I mean, you talk about exact replica. I mean, this is it. When I close my eyes, that's what I picture. And Ernie announced it back there in the late 80s.
Oh, Ernie was.
Look at the Grand Prix. I remember those noses, pointy front noses.
Yes, Ernie was so fast. That guy could make lap time. He was not scared either. He would go.
I think, you know, I'm even going to, not just the paint scheme, how about the driving style? Aggressive. Both.
Yeah.
You know, they're both going to attack.
Yeah.
Dave Burns, what you got down in the garage? I'm guessing not cool weather still.
Oh, no, it's still hot weather. No, got that all weekend long. Hey, possibly the most classic paint scheme represented this weekend is on the 14 car for Clint Boyer. This is a replica of Ned Jarrett's number 11 that won the 500 here by 14 laps, the first one ever. And that was a pretty exciting day for Ned. Interesting juxtaposition, though. I want to use that large word today. Listen to this radio recently from Clint.
Well, my pad went dead already. Good news is it made it for 6 minutes. The bad news is it's been on the charger for 2 weeks.
So, yes, with time off, they kept their iPads charged, but this one only lasted 6 minutes. So, the most classic, oldest scheme in the race this weekend, the iPad, the most new electronic gizmo, didn't work.
I think Ned Jarrett jinxed that thing. He said, you know what, we didn't have iPads in 1965. And hey, cool thing about 65, so 44 cars entered the race, 15 were running when it was over. 15.
Whew. Go back and take a look. This is it. This is what Darlington looked like back in September of 65.
One lane.
Almost didn't sanction the first stock car race at Darlington because of Bill Sr.'s concern of the stock car making it 500 miles.
And he thought, there's no way.
Yeah.
500 miles.
And we still have those concerns today.
Yeah, well. I wonder what the concern's higher. Is it the driver or the car? I mean, so let's talk about 500 miles here. Is it more mentally taxing to run 500 here just because you're up, you know, every lap, there's just no room for error?
I I think that, week after week after week, your body gets conditioned, you get used to it. I haven't drove a race car in I don't know how long, since November last year. And I went and tested a late model at Hickory Motor Speedway for about 2 hours yesterday. And I was wore out.
2 hours and you were done.
Yeah. So I think that, if you're not conditioned, if you're just going to show up and run this race, that is going to be extremely tough.
We mentioned late models. Danny Hamlin, well, his throwback scheme in this 11 car is all the way back to his mini stock title. We're not going late models. We're going back to the mini stock. Look at this, the old Chesterfield trailer and hitch.
That is a good-looking mini stock. Some great footage. I love this old footage, man.
Denny's digging.
Oh!
That's when his dad had to fight. His mom and dad were such a huge part of this racing, and he talked so much about what they meant and the sacrifices they made so Denny could get to the point that he is today. And it started with this little mini stock.
Good-looking race car.
And all week on social media, they told stories with him, his mom, and his dad.
Denny's got Denny's a favorite. Won last year, won the Xfinity race last year.
Oh yeah. Well, listen. Perhaps either the 24 car because I worked on it, but growing up as a kid, I was a Rusty Wallace fan. He was my guy. And this is, that's as authentic as it gets right there. The Millen Genuine Draft number 2, black and gold.
Rusty was a great competitor. It's a shot of the original car in 1990. Rusty was, he would work hard, he would play hard, but he was a great guy to race against. Give it all, but give you respect as well.
Who owned that race car, Burton?
This car, the 27 car?
Yeah.
Raymond Beadle.
Raymond Beadle, that's right. And that's the interesting thing about these stories. You kind of have to put everything together. Yeah, Rusty's known as a Penske guy, but this paint scheme actually goes back to Ray Beadle, the team that they had.
I wasn't a big fan of that car. Dad and Rusty were heavy-duty competitors. Rusty had just beat Dad for the championship in the white Kodiak car the year before, so
you thought the black was a little bit of a shot?
Rusty was kind of Rusty was a little bit of the enemy, and this did also mimic Dad's car a little bit. And then
jumped on the roof.
Yeah.
When he won in Atlanta, he's jumping up on down
the
roof.
hood, everything.
Then I would go drive the competing beers car for many years of my career, so I never was a big fan of that car. But they're doing great. That is another throwback this weekend that's identical to the car from the past. Gotta love the effort those guys put in. Brad's pretty good at doing that. This is another one.
This car, 2006, if that 9 right there showed up at a 1.5 mile track, look out. I mean, Casey Kane, he was the man in that Dodge Charger back then. He had just something figured out. Him, Kenny Francis, Mike Ford, there was a wave of them together that Ray assembled. That car was fast. Remember, it had that low left side. It looked like it was sitting on the ground in the garage area.
Charlotte in the high lane.
Oh, yeah.
Casey Kane coming hard. Gosh, he was fast.
Casey recently announcing this is his last full season, so when you make that kind of announcement, come to a track like this, be able to run this paint scheme that means so much to him personally, it's got to feel good. And he's going to be thinking about, and you did this too, Steve, when you announced your retirement from crew chiefing. You go to every racetrack differently from there on out. You're free of the pressure and the concern. You just enjoy. And these are the final laps, and you start counting it down. And so, Casey's going to be enjoying this weekend, enjoying the race, enjoying this paint scheme.
And I was amazed what the pressure did. I didn't even know it was there.
You didn't know you had that much pressure till you got rid of it.
Till it was gone, and then I was like, what are we going to do? We're going to stay out. Well, of course we're going to stay out. Why would we pit? We're just going to throw the dice.
Well, the pressure left you, but the guys here today, they still have it. And right now, you said it earlier, Denny Hamlin won the Xfinity race and the Cup race last year. P1 right now.
Catch all the action of NASCAR on NBC with the NBC Sports app. Guys, you get alternate camera angles, driver strats, track information, tons of information on the NBC Sports app. Not just practice, a whole day of action. NASCAR America Fan Edition. Dale Jr., I heard you're going to be down in the pit box talking to some drivers?
Yeah, we're going to have David Reagan, Kyle Busch, Joe Logano is going to come by. I can't wait to see those guys. Talk a little bit about the Throwback weekend, what they enjoy about that. We're also going to have Burton down in the
I'm going to break in some more people motorhomes. Like we did in Michigan.
What could go wrong?
So that should be a lot of fun. Can't wait. Right after the final practice, right?
So, Jeff, you saw how I read the promo. I didn't announce it.
Which surprised me because I didn't know what you were doing because you didn't tell me.
You know, when I announced that I was going to read the promo, I knew that it would be a long time till I got to read another promo.
That kind of killed it.
Yep.
I'm talking about killing it. This guy right here is killing the competition. Well, first, look at him work around here. Let's watch it, guy. I was going to tell you about the wind stickers. They're going down the rooftop. There's not really room for any more. But
he's got a lot of them.
So while we're doing this, you and I talked about this morning. Watch the way Kevin Harvick drives turns 1 and 2. He drives in the corner, crosses over the apron. That's kind of old school. He's not even close to the wall compared to how you're going to be, and that's how he races this racetrack. Everybody else runs up into one, gets the right side right against the wall. Kevin Harvick stays a little bit lower. I asked him a couple years ago, why do you do that? He said, because I can't run 500 miles here without damaging the car. And when I need to, I can get up there, but if I make my car work running a little bit lower, it makes me better in the race, and that's why he does that. He starts out in practice doing it.
You're right. I was surprised to hear him say that. I thought that you know, he goes down there because it's faster, because its balance is better, but to hear him say that it's more of a survival decision, it's such, you know, it makes you think about it, you know, how smart that is as a driver to set your car up to run in a safe place and compete all night long. Because everywhere we go, when we move off the bottom, the car just gets better.
Right.
It's going to be fine when he moves to the fence. He doesn't really have to go up there and practice there to figure that out.
And I'm starting to understand now. I can't speak for you, but I'm starting to understand now why maybe I didn't win a championship. Because I didn't think that out all the way.
Yeah, I'd get here and practice right on the fence. And I'd already hit the wall 2 or 3 times till the race started.
You get worked out.
And you're proud of it.
I never thought, man, I need to run where it's safe. Never did that.
Well, safe perhaps is the garage here. We see Kevin Harvick riding back in here in a car that's still in the garage. This one, he's backing out now, going to the track. The 72 of Corey LaJoie. You talk about throwback. How about throwing back to your dad? Back to Randy LaJoie. Back in 1990, he ran this in the Xfinity Series. And Randy LaJoie is quite a character. He has our producer, Matt Marvin, he loves Randy LaJoie's quote about here. We're going to check it out. Look at that, though. 1990 Xfinity
Yeah, I raced
Series.
against this car.
Oh, yeah, that's right in your window.
That's right when I kicked in and started running.
Here, this is the quote. This is Darlington and its finest. And what's the toughest part? Randy says the toughest part of the track is when you exit pit road and you go onto the track.
Yeah.
Which basically means there's no easy part.
It's all hard from there.
It's all hard.
One of the first burnouts that we see every weekend, I remember, was Randy LaJoie clinched the championship for the Xfinity Series and did a burnout on the back straightaway at Rockingham. Just burnouts,
That was new.
360s, and he hit the wall.
Oh.
And I thought, don't do burnouts. Don't do burnouts.
Yeah.
Just hit the wall.
I saw Corey actually walking through the garage here, and I picked on him because he had some loafers and some shorts and a T-shirt. I said, man, it looks like you're going to the beach. He goes, it's only 2 hours from here, so I might end up at the beach, and it's hot. But the coolest part was he had one of his dad's hats. So, I mean, it wasn't like a replica throwback. It was, no, this is one. This is a 20-something-year-old hat he's wearing.
And Randy, to this day, continues to contribute to the sport. He's got a seat company.
Yep.
They do a great job of building really safe seats for cup cars, late models, everything. Your son, I think, is in a LaJoie seat in his car. And, you know, he continues to contribute to the sport in many ways.
Just one more great story about the history. I mean, listen, 7 decades. There's a lot to choose from.
My kid's clawing, trying to get some traction in this series, trying to run with an underfunded team.
And he did a great job. You think about his K&N series, you know, the history in that, and they ran that car, you know, out of his dad's shop, competing against much bigger teams, contending for championships, won a lot of races. The kid can drive a race car.
Absolutely.
Well, this 38 right here is basically the same era, about a 1990-91 old Dale Jarrett era right here. This is Mustache Dale. This is what era I call. This is Mustache Dale. It's a great mustache, but see that 21 Sitco car where DJ got that win back in Michigan.
This was a huge, huge deal. You had Ned Jarrett's son, Dale Jarrett, Davey Allison battling for the win. Wood Brothers winning the race. Wood Brothers hadn't won a race in quite a while. Dale Jarrett just sort of finally captured. You know, he'd been battling in the Cup Series, and Xfinity Series, or Busch Series back there for years, trying to get some footing. And I remember that day being such a big deal. Dad didn't have a very good race, and everybody was sort of paying attention so much on those last couple laps because of the iconic names that were battling for that win.
And the launching pad, right, from there to ended up at coach's place, a Gibbs, and then went to Robert Yates. I mean, just really that win, the trajectory was up from there for Dale Jarrett.
But Dale's career, really, if you think about it, he went on to be a Hall of Famer, a champion, but it didn't start out like great. Like he had to claw and claw and claw, and it shows you that if you give some drivers an opportunity to learn and don't give up on them, they can yield some results. And, you know, Dale Jarrett, but he can't, Hall of Famer, man.
And not only can they yield results, but if you look at the guys that are winning today, they can yield those results on into their 40s.
That's right. You know, another family throwback right here. Another throwback to his dad, Ryan Blaney, throwing back to the old Jasper ride with Dave Blaney back in 02-03. I remember this car well.
Nose low to the ground.
Yeah, oh yeah, right.
You can see, look how high that nose is, Steve. And you look at cars today, and there's nothing in between them and the racetrack. And that's how it went fast back then, man. If you got it low to the ground, it wouldn't turn.
And those Tauruses right there with, whew.
Oh, they were fast.
We mentioned Rockingham and the burnout from Randy LaJoie. Well, here's another little Rockingham highlight. This is Blaney back in 03 winning the pole that day at Rockingham. First ever pole at the Rock. That was the place. The Rock in Darlington, I mean, they could grind up a tire in one lap. I mean, both of these tracks, Dave, kind of the same area of the country. Something about the asphalt, it was really similar here in Rockingham.
And it was fun to see this car unveiled earlier this year because at Team Penske, they invited Dave Blaney, Dad, to unveil the car with Ryan. And so proud to stand there and talk with his son, who he had hoped would get involved in NASCAR, hope would do better than he did. Remember, Dave wasn't in this sport that long. He did so well in the World of Outlaws and was such a star there, you know, racing NASCAR for a few years, and now he's hoping Ryan can do so much better. But when they unveiled this car, he saw the paint scheme, he saw how it looked like the 77 was so inspired to this 12. A proud moment for him.
Hey, and how about Rockingham was just bought this past week.
That's right.
New group bought it, so maybe someday, one way, possibly, somehow, we can get back racing there.
Oof. I'm wondering what year Harrison's going to run the Jeff Burton throwback. I'm waiting for that. Here's the top speeds for practice so far.
The 2000s, turn of the century. Y2K did not happen. The kids went crazy for Harry Potter. And my wife went nuts over the new James Bond. Hipsters fell in love with this thing called the iPod. Some say it was chunky. Beyonce and Jay-Z finally got married. And down in Darlington, Kurt Busch and Ricky Craven gave us one of the best finishes in NASCAR.
It's coming down the line. This is going to be close. Ricky Craven gets the win. All right. What a finish.
So I've seen that finish 5 different ways, and I'm still, I mean, it was close. The 97 had to be, and we're talking an inch, a couple thousandths. But all day, we got Xfinity Series practice next. After that, some more Cup cars on the racetrack at 4 p.m. Then Dale Jr., NASCAR America Fan Edition. You'll be on the pit box with a few drivers in Burton. Heard you taking a little road trip to the infield.
So I'm with Rutledge and Kyle. So you tell me what's going to happen.
Well, I would make sure you have your insurance card with you. Dave.
Sorry, you made me laugh. Hey, I was listening to Ken Squire talk about the 90s, and I think people were still eating Oscar Mayer wieners then. I know one kid that was, Travis Peterson, who's an engineer for the 6 car at Roush Fenway Racing. This weekend, he and the 6 are sporting the Oscar Mayer colors, which aren't necessarily throwback, but they've been a sponsor in the sport before, and that's been a long time. Their other car on track, though, Ricky Stenhouse's car, is something you might recognize a little bit more. That's the John Deere colors that Chad Little drove when he drove the 97s. The connection is that Travis's grandfather, Bob, worked for both companies in Wisconsin. I'm just telling you that because Travis told me that, and Grandpa Bob is watching at home knowing that he once worked for John Deere, and he also worked for Oscar Mayer. It's a Roush Fenway connection.
I'm a big fan of that cheese-filled Oscar Mayer dog.
Did he get to drive the Oscar Mayer mobile? What is that thing called?
No, but I saw Ricky
The
Stenhouse.
Wienermobile.
Oh, the Wienermobile.
Yeah.
I saw Ricky Stenhouse. He posted a picture from his off weekend. Everybody went on vacation, and he said he was on his John Deere tractor out on his property. So not just a sponsor, but using the equipment.
31 car, Ryan Newman. This is Neil Bonnett's 1993 number 31 Goodrich Chevrolet. Neil run this car at Talladega. A picture of it. Ended up flipping down the front straightaway.
Richard Childress, the car owner, 31. He and Neil were good friends.
Mom and Pops, man, that was on the hood of my late model car. Prime Sirloin, that was also a sponsor on our late model car. Dad and Mom and Pops, Prime Sirloin, Western Steer. Bennett's Barbecue.
You're making me hungry.
So see the stats right there is a good racetrack.
This doesn't surprise me, though, because when you talk about Mr. Consistent, it's Ryan Newman, right? He's the guy that's kind of around all day. You can't shake him. And this is the type of track where if you just hang around all day, you're going to have a decent finish.
Well, their situation, though, is they don't need good.
Oh,
They need
no.
great. Oh, there's Jones.
That looks like he was maybe trying to come on pit road. It's down there in the middle of 3 and 4.
Yeah. I think that's right. He's trying to maybe make at the end of practice, guys may try to get on the pit road with their old tires and try to see how far they can push it, because this is probably the toughest pit road entrance in the series. What do you say?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It is the toughest pit road to get onto because you cannot see the entrance of pit road until you're at it. And then all that grime and dirt and rocks and all that stuff we talked about earlier, that's right where you want to be. So you can see Eric, he's around really early. Normally on a green flag stop, you try to carry go around the corner a little bit further, and you just have to slow down so much more than you could ever imagine you have to.
Well, Junior, you and I, we missed that thing in one of our races here. It's easy to do. And just last year, Denny Hamlin, the eventual winner of the race. Look at this. Oh, man. And he knows, like, there's at that point, you're better off to just commit back to the racetrack and not hit the barrels. He gets that penalty, and look at him come through traffic. But really, it's used too much. But talk about an epic drive, lap after lap, on old wore-out tires, and ran the 78 down. Then the 78 ends up losing a tire and gets into the fence, which kind of ruined the pass that I think was coming anyway. That drive by Denny Hamlin at one of the toughest racetracks, on the edge of control, right against the wall all night, deserving win. Think about it. This is a guy, in my mind, that has Hall of Fame numbers, but has yet to win in 2018. What would a win mean to him heading into the playoffs to get the momentum out of the Southern 500?
Pretty big deal. I mean, especially in this car. That means so much to him personally. Might be the biggest win of his career for him, being able to win in a car with that much history in his own personal life. So he's got the speed. He's the fastest car on the charts and loves this racetrack. So find out if anybody can top it and come back. All rise for Premier League mornings. Sergio Aguero and defending Premier League champion Manchester City faced off against Newcastle tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern on NBC. Look at the seats, y'all. That's new.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all know that?
Seats. Oh, I saw brand
All down the front straightaway.
Look
at all
that.
new seats.
Cup holders.
Wider, got cup holders.
Listen, you got to enjoy a cup holder. This is nice. Any fans, they haven't decided yet what they're going to do Labor Day weekend. I suggest come on out here to Darlington, get you a ticket. This right here, a little more comfort for the guys watching the race.
Here's some names of the past winners at the racetrack. Lake Speed, man. I was here.
Oh, Ward. There's Ward.
It's a big weekend.
Ward was fun to watch drive around here, man.
Remember that, the one? Oh, hey, I remember the one Southern 500. He took off and disappeared, and everybody was like, oh, he can't run that hard all day. He'll come back to us. Never did.
Yeah. I can remember standing when the track used to be turn 2, used to be turn 4, and we were pitted back there, and everybody, when he would qualify, would go watch. He set the track record the year before, and then the next race he came, and when he came up and in sight in turn 2, he was going backwards.
Oh, man.
He was coming at us hard, but in the wrong direction. Dave.
Hey, you guys showed those seats at Darlington. I know what they can eat. Perhaps a little title sponsor food. Bojangles is back on the car of Derek Cope. I asked Derek about that because last year he ran a different throwback scheme. He said, you know what? The same guy who put my marketing effort together back in 1993 when we ran this car was working on the stage last year when I walked across for driver introductions. I said, hey, when are we going to bring back the old Bo scheme? He said, well, how about next year? So they put it together, and Derek Cope is back with Bojangles.
That's cool, and that's how stuff happens here, man. It's fun to see Bojangles back.
Bojangles will change your life, man. If you've never had
I agree.
You gotta go check it out.
That chicken biscuit first thing in the morning, that
pretty
thing,
good.
Magical.
Yep. Big supporter of the racetrack here. Perfect fit, too.
Oh, yeah. That's what you used to. Look, Sunday morning,
Mustache.
go to church, you leave church. Oh, look, it's a texture.
Yeah, I thought it was.
That's not creepy.
I thought it was a decal.
That's not creepy. at all.
Wonder where that came from.
Yeah, you leave church, you get yourself a box of great chicken.
French fries, man.
Oh, they're
Those
spicy French fries.
Check this car out, man.
And they're
This
good.
is Jeffrey Earnhardt, and this is Dad's paint scheme. Jeffrey running my father and his grandfather's paint scheme from 1978 Cardinal Tractor Ford.
I had never seen this scheme before.
Really?
Never.
Yeah, he ran it a few times.
I got a question. Who came up with the number font?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get the 9 and then about halfway up
Did
the
they only
9
have
you put
one?
the 6?
Let me question. Did they have all
This is
9s and
owned-
they have
this
to
was-
flip it and
this
slide it
was
up?
owned by Will Concrete, so you have to ask him.
Okay.
Well, get him on the phone.
Dad ran that at he ran it at Darlington. He ran it at Talladega. He ran it at Charlotte.
See, this is why I like this weekend, because I don't know that paint scheme.
42 car here, Kyle Larson. This is Davey Allison's 1987 to 1990 Texaco Javelin Battlestar Ford.
Colors are changed up, but it's the same idea.
I need the gold.
I was going to say, I wish they had the chrome numbers, but
NASCAR, please bring back the chrome numbers.
the chrome numbers.
That's all you got to say.
Yeah.
Just like that. They're coming
Just like
back.
that, they're coming back.
This is Talladega back 1987. We're not pack racing to Talladega. We are. Look at that small little spoiler on the back of that thing.
And the Lanier team, man, they had Talladega Daytona figured out for years. I mean, from 78, 79, all the way up till Davey drove for those guys. They were fast. Waddell Wilson building the motors.
We talked about Denny Hamlin as a guy that could take some momentum. How about Kyle Larson? He's another one, winless this year. If he could win here, is that the step, the little bit he needs to catch a Kyle Busch, a Kevin Harvick? Would momentum from the Southern 500 carry Kyle Larson into the playoffs? It'd be interesting to see. Oh, man, I remember this ride, the 59 Kingsford.
Yeah, this is a throwback to the Xfinity Series. Robert Presley's drive. You know who else drove this car? Similar paint. It was pretty much the same paint scheme. Jimmy Johnson, in one of his first Xfinity races, drove the Kingsford car.
Oh, yes.
I raced against Robert Presley a lot. Dale Jarrett standing up here with us. He raced against Robert Presley. And let me tell you something, man. When Robert Presley was behind you, your rear bumper better be tough. He's going to be wearing that thing out. He was.
Wonder where you got that from.
Yeah, old Dad taught him a few things. They were hardcore racers, that's for sure. His son's a spotter now.
Coleman Presley.
Coleman did some racing too.
All right. You talked about the beverage companies and the beer sponsors. This one is as classic as it gets right here. The old Bobby Allison back to Miller.
This one was so good. This is his second time in 2 years.
Yes.
I think
it could be re-racked for sure.
Yeah, I think Di Benedetto did this one last year.
Well, you talk about the battles between names. How about the battles within a family back here in the 1988 Daytona 500? Dad leading son to the checkered flag on Valentine's Day.
Now, you know Davey was happy because this is Dad, but he probably wished that it was reversed, where he was beating his father to the finish line. I know every time I raced against Dad, I didn't want to run second to him.
Right.
I wonder what Mom and wife was thinking. Like, Bobby's wife.
Don't wreck each other.
What was she thinking?
Please.
I'm going to Victory Lane no matter what. It's going to be good for me either way.
Maybe they're thinking a good thing is a long ways till Thanksgiving. Could be awkward. We don't have a big holiday coming up. When you talk about sponsors like this Starcom fiber that's on top of it, I really appreciate these sponsors that support this, right? They have to come in. They have their own color scheme, their own paint schemes. They said, no, we're going to support this weekend. We're going to let you put a throwback scheme on here. We're going to keep it pretty reasonable when it comes to colors and layout. I really love the sponsors get behind it.
Well, practice is over. The red flag's out. Denny Hamlin stayed on top of this practice the entire time. Kyle Larson, we talked about him, a good practice. And look at Alex Bowman there in fourth. And Jimmy Johnson in seventh. Can we see something from Jimmy Johnson Sunday night?
Coming up next, Xfinity Series practice.